Ryan Kennedy was browsing a Shorvanti Thingiverse-esque website looking for something interesting to print out next rest period when the announcement popped up. Attention all cadets. Update regarding final practical. Captain Ventesha is being replaced with Captain Rochelle as OB4 Patrol Ship Trader's Honor is being replaced with Patrol Ship Dearer Than Gold as 4-up Command Ship. All other factors remain the same. Ryan gave a noise of amused interest and then went back to his scrolling. There was some quiet shuffling when Venture's Fourth poked her head out from Milk's bunk to look at the announcement on her own omnibus slate. There was a quiet pause, and then a squeal. "We're fighting for Rear Admiral Rochelle? Oh shit, we're fighting Rear Admiral Rochelle!" Milk's head pops up as well. The lipstick she only rarely puts on was smudged, and she blinked at Cookie. Cookie shrugs. "Well, don't leave us hanging. Who's this Rear Admiral?" Ryan asked the Gears child roommate. Milk clambered over Venture's Fourth to grab her own on the slate, sleeping clothes conspicuously absent. "The tablet says Captain," she corrects. "Captain Rochelle, maybe you're misunderstanding things." "No, there was one Rochelle who recently got transferred to patrol from the Navy. Rear Admiral Rochelle, the Imperium's bloody hand," Venture's Fourth replied. "I think the rumours were that she pissed off someone important and got busted down in rank. Doesn't matter. It's the bloody hand. She is undefeated in battle. Nobody has ever beaten her strategically, and she presided over more naval victories than you and I have birthdays." The words flowed out of Venture's Fourth's mouth like they were coming straight from an old-timey film reel, declaring the newest tanker race. Not propaganda, not quite, but they were mythical words applied to a single person. "And why is she called the Bloody Hand?" Cookie asks. It was Slivers who replied, entering the room, a plate of almost burrito-like meat wraps from the mess hall on a plate. "Because she has a habit of spending her soldiers' lives for victory." "So she gambled with her fleet and got lucky?" Cookie asks, trying to snag one of the wraps, only to have Slivers' tail smack his hand away. "Not lucky and not gambling. I was bored and looked up some of the fleet orders and who she sent where. All the movements were well thought out. She would hold back reserves when throwing them in, would just get them killed so they could hammer the enemy at a key point, even when her fleet was being savaged, sending interceptors with targeting lasers against capital ships to ensure better weapon locks. Things like that. Sacrifices to ensure victory." "But she doesn't bring everybody home, so bloody hand," Milk remarks. "Found her Wikipedia article." She pauses. "Damn, that's a lot of victories." "Tactical victories?" Cookie asks. Milk looks back with genuine respect in her eyes. "Strategic victories." "Damn," Cookie replies with similar respect. "Sounds almost like Zukov." "I don't know who Zukov," Force began, "but the Bloody Hand is legendary with anyone who studies tactics, and logistics, and soldier psychology, to be honest. There are so many people who try to mimic how she acts and just fail. They can't figure out how she pulls it off. You'd expect someone whose record has them sending soldiers to die over and over would lose support, but no. At one point there was a poll taken and more or less every soldier said they marched into the void if ordered." "Throw a bit of pattern in there then," Cookie muttered. "I wonder if she's looking for a pilot." Milk grinned. "It'd be one hell of a way to fly." "Enough of that," Slivers said. "Who is this Zukov?" The humans grinned. "Spanner?" "Here." "Thanks." "Simple patterns were the best patterns." "Socket wrench, 10mm. "Here." "Thanks." When two people know each other for long enough, they can work together without question, without thought. They understand the slang and shorthand used in everyday speech. "How'd you get a wrench thing?" "Here." "Thanks." It's always beautiful when it happens. After all, what comes after such unity is, of course, being sappy little shits who keep their roommates up all night with their sweet nothings. "Please for a spanner at Cookie." "Will do, Milk." "Thanks, Fourth." "Oh, fine. I'll fuck off and leave you two to your flirting." Cookie left the engineering bay, rubbing a sore spot on his head as Venture's Fourth went to retrieve the small wrench she idly threw at the pilot. "So, where were we?" she asked Irene. "We're almost done," the WSO reported from underneath the fusion torch she was assigned to repair. "Apparently when you crashed an interceptor, all you got was a new airframe. It was up to the crew to bring its systems back to full functionality. I swear, the more I learn about this bird, the more shocked I am how simple it is." Venture's Fourth bravely into Great Unknowns looked up from the toolbox she was halfway through, reorganizing for the 16th time. What do you mean? I get that it's just a rocket, but what do you mean, shocked? I mean, it's a fusion rocket. My homeworld wrote up theoretical designs for these things. Granted, we were going to use nuclear weapons instead of, well, whatever classified energy source powers this thing. The Irish WSO tapped the black box, vibrantly labelled power source, and festooned with hazard symbols. But even then, it's probably just some special compound making a turbine spin or creating specialised steam to create the thrust needed for Newton's third law, Seneschal's second. The Gizchar nodded thoughtfully. You know, yeah, now that I think about it, the system that keeps my augmentations working is more or less just a set of turbines hooked up to my bloodstream and a carry burner in my stomach. She pauses. I don't know how I feel that the thing ensuring I can see out of my right eye is technology going back about as far as we've been farming. The steam engine or the water wheel? Both. Some of our rivers boil, and the steam engine is just a really complicated water wheel. Milk nodded idly, and then slammed the hatch closed from the fusion torch. All right, let's start running the diagnostics. You got that? Worf nodded. Easy enough to do. Just need to set up a hardline and I can start having them run on my hardware. Better than an omelette by half. Yeah, it might be. But I don't want you picking up any viruses with stuff that connects to your head, Milk replied, reaching around to pull out the connection wire. It's strange. Sometimes you'll look at something and realise it looks almost exactly like something it had on Earth. The connection wires to the fusion torch's diagnostic systems looked like a bunch of USB cables hooked up to a HDMI outlet, and as Ventures Forth took the wire, sat down and plugged it into her wrist, it looked like something out of every single cyberpunk movie. The WSO waited, watching the engineer with idle interest, as a robotic plate over her right eye flickered with light, as her left eye shifted onto the orange eyelid. Doing all right, Forth? Milk asked, taking a seat across from the Gizchar and moving the cyborg's free hand into her own. Didn't accidentally poke the black ice? Ventures Forth twitched a bit at that comment. Black ice? Ah, acronym. Intrusion countermeasures, electronic. No issue, no ice. She breathed in and then breathed out. Mentally strained to run mental processor and interact with real. Please let me focus. Milk nodded, not that Forth saw, and quietly began to rub the other woman's hand, letting her focus on the job. Come on, Celios's pride. Push forward, you've almost broke them. Slivers called out, subharmonics turning the semi-meaningless hisses into words in her mother tongue. The synth was lucky her race was found by the shill. Unlike the other species in the galaxy, due to how the snake-like race's vocal cords are formed, it was nigh impossible for them to speak anything but their home tongue, or the Shovanti Chader talk, albeit with a serious accent. She was catching up on some sports reruns from her homeworld. Even though the game had been decided weeks ago, she still loved to watch the games in real time. She watched as the matriarchs watched each other from across the skirmish lines, staring over the heads of their team of 18 live, elegant synth men, how they struggled, rolled, bit and squirmed, trying to get an advantage, to either move the line or pin the other players and force them down, everything to get closer. Born from Den Celios and under the guidance of matriarch Orifusia, Slivers cheered for the home team with pride, even though they were quite bad. Granted, their team's matriarch, Basathis, was very hot. He was regularly voted as the best of matriarch Orphilius's clutch. Elegance and brutality melding together in a perfect mix for the perfect synth. Slivers' tongue flicked out as she looked at him, standing there proud and firm, artful paint on his hood and vibrant green scales standing out from the brown moss below. She ran her hands down her surgically smooth chest, and imagined the sleek muscles of Basathis's live body. There was a click and the door opened, revealing Cookie with a tray of food. Slivers, you in here? He asked, and Slivers blinked before slapping her crest with a hand. Humans don't have K-vision worth a fallen scale. Yes, I'm here, she replies. The language of the shill has never sat right on her lips, even though she was good at it. The harsh sounds forced her to bite off subharmonics and almost cough the syllables out, but she adapted. You can turn the lights on, I just forgot to do so. No kidding. You looked over here and it was like 2 flashlights. Your eyes are really reflective, aren't they? Cookie asked, flipping the light on. The smaller pilot always walked with a sense of weight, a surety of step. Maybe it was because he was used to moving around on boats, but she wasn't so sure. There was confidence there, something intrinsic, not something that could be taught or learned. So, what are you watching? Sports? He asked, sliding up next to her and taking a seat on the bed. Looks like American football. Well, basic rules are you have a matriarch and their clutch of 9 trying to... She paused. I think I need to give you some context. He looked over at her and raised an eyebrow. In a single gesture. She didn't have eyebrows, none of her race did, and yet she knew exactly what that facial expression meant. The scales on her face flushed, and her tail shook in embarrassment, before shaking it off. Right, well, She looked away from him just in time to see the two matriarchs on the screen clash in a duel of scale, tooth and tail. Slivers paused the game and turned back to her roommate. Well, first of all, you know about our dens, right? I explained that, she asked. He nodded. Yeah. Synth would gather together in family clumps, and since Synth relationships are bundles of spaghetti, they began expanding. She shivered whenever he said their race name. It wasn't because he was pronouncing it wrong. Technically, it wasn't even the right thing to call them. But it was the only word they had that the shield could pronounce. But the low drawl and baritone rumble created a harmonic of its own that did delightful things to the word. Eventually, one lady would become the leader, and then more or less became nations under that lady. Slivers nodded and then cocked her head to the side. Kind of. Well, right. Matriarchs aren't chosen forever. Back in the den era, before the council, a matriarch would rise because she was the most powerful mother in the den, with the best clutch. Not children, she said, cutting off Cookie's question. Clutch in this case means followers. A man of political intrigue, a man of brutal action, and a woman of means and power. Arm candy made competent? Slivers rolled the turn of phrase around in her head. Candy is sweet. Arm candy? Ah. Pretty things to make you look better. Kind of? It's, well, men are supposed to be elegant and lithe and powerful, competent in their chosen fields and good at working with others. And picking the best men and women for your clutch means their glories are reflected on you. Cookie looked over to the screen, watching as a pair of Sems stood frozen, entwined in combat, fangs flashing and fists clenched. I can see the appeal. It's not just the appeal, it's everything about them. A man is to be a stone of elegance and confidence, moving without hesitation or doubt. She looked over to the pair Cookie was watching. Unlike me, but that's not important, she cried. A matriarch is supposed to be powerful, untouchable, the leader of the den, and before the council, some dens would want to war against each other, but since they don't want to go to full war, they figured out a ritual for claiming what they wanted without forcing their people to fight and die for land. Slivers nodded. They would take themselves and 9 members of their clutch and bring them to fight against the other matriarch. Their goal would be to force submission. Cookie looked back at the screen at the show on display. Yeah, I can see how that might end up becoming a sport. He took another look, a longer look. Slivers? Yes, Cookie. Why are these all men? Slivers' scowls stood on end in embarrassment. Captain Rochelle? Senior Drill Matron Senwin. Captain Rochelle? Senior Drill Matron Talfin. I see you arrived here safely, Talfin asked, as Rochelle took a seat across from them. The drill matron's mess was quiet this time of the day. Anyone who might be here was normally busy, but the pair decided to meet an old friend, so were more relaxed than their office. Well enough. The crew I have is competent and well drilled, but we're short-staffed and they're stressed. I'll pick up some fresh sailors after graduation and see about those who requested transfers. The Commandant still hands out good contact medals, right? Rochelle asked, pulling a tray of spiced MRE closer to herself and beginning to eat. To their crew, the captain never sleeps, shits or eats, so standing on the bridge during jumps is hungry work. Senwin nods. She's finishing up preparations for the practical, so she'll be in her office if you want to talk to her, handing out medals to the ones jumping ship, she asks with a slight derision. To abandon your new captain because they might make you do your job? Rochelle looked up and pointed a fork at the drill matron. Requested transfer. I'd rather have my crew knowing their limits and knowing what type of ship they can do best on than failing at a critical time because I ran them too hard. They serve with honour and most intend to keep doing so. She sighed. Some of the knowers have been pestering me to retire, offering jobs in various militias or hinting they might be digging up blackmail. Sharks in the water. Tarfin nodded, giving her wife a look. I understand. You saw the message? About the potential crew? I'll wait to see how they do before committing to anything. I have something that might sweeten the deal about the pilots, Tarfin said, leaning forward in a whisper. They fought during the expedition to Earth, and they scored an aerial victory. Rochelle did something she rarely does. She swore. No shit! Tell me more.